Views and opinions expressed on the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff or management of alltalkradio.net.
Here I am, standing at the door, looking back at life as it's been before, holding on to things that might have been, knowing that this day will never come again, as my spirit's guiding me to a place where I am free to be all that I can be.
Hi, this is Lainey Risto, and you're watching and listening to Soul Chat. And this is my co-host today is
Carol Carson.
Yeah, and the name of your show when you have it
Coffee with Carol.
Yeah, and you talk about kind of everything.
Everything, yeah, everything and anything. About people, their lives, about what's going on in the world, whatever somebody needs to talk about or discuss or wants to get out to the public. That's what I do.
Yeah. And I asked Carol on today because we have a friend of mine from many years ago that's going to be online. Some of you probably have seen some messages that went out. It's been on Facebook. We put it out in text message. It's been on meetup.com. A friend of mine named Diane Berry is going to be online or is going to be here. Not in the studio. She's going to phone in or Skype in. We haven't. Did we figure out yet? Have we got her? She's in. Okay. So we'll bring her on here in a minute. And we're going to continue talking about empathy, which is what we talked about, being an empath, which is what we talked last week on the show. And it was a natural thing because we'd had her on the show a few months ago, when she was writing the book, and she's finished writing a book. So before we get to that, there's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. If you're interested in calling in, you can call in at 702-609-7626 if you've got a question or if you've got a story or something about being an empath, and we'll talk a little more about that as we get going. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is one of the things I follow is the moon. I'm a big moon watcher, especially living here because we have such great ones. Really.
Yeah.
You know, they're beautiful. Being raised in the Northwest where there was like 9 months of the year where both Diane and I were raised, you didn't really see the moon a lot. You could stand out there and go, it's up there somewhere. Because there's so much cloud cover, but I really love it. Tomorrow, what's happening on the 18th is it's the new moon. And this is when the moon, for lack of a better way to say it, turns. It goes dark for a while. It's actually totally lined up with this on the other side between the Earth and the Sun, so we don't see it at all.
Oh.
And then when it starts going in its orbit, and it's what we call a new moon. And spiritually and energetically, we look at the new moon as this is the beginning of a new cycle. And the new moon, this time it's in a different signs because astrology plays into that. So the new moon is a time to celebrate improvements, no matter how small or large. And this time it's actually for the second month in a row, wherever it is in the chart when it becomes the new moon, that's the sign that they attribute to it. So it's at the last degree of Aquarius. And, and the moon moves really fast. It moves like 28 days in its orbit. It just goes, so it goes around the chart quite a bit. This is a really good time to be still. This is a good time to be quiet, go to that stillness in yourself, and to celebrate things that have been good. This is a really good time to do that. And the other thing is that things that you want to improve on because it's in Aquarius, this is a good time to think about it. Not that need to be improved. We got a list, and I have a list of needs of things I have to do that, I could use a toilet paper roll, a complete roll, but this is about the ones that you want to improve. So this is a good time to really focus on that. And it's also a good time to dream. Dream big. dream in a way that you don't normally do. We all have dreams we've had since we were a kid, but this is kind of a good time for new dreams, a bigger time. For me personally, this is a real good time for me to finish and start things.
Okay.
In the new moon. So we have like 2 weeks of new moon, and then we have the full moon for about 2 or 3 days, and then we have like 2 weeks of what we call the waning moon, and that's a good time to let things go. I don't have anything to let go of anymore. Do you?
I think at my age I've left everything go now.
I can't find half of it.
I
half
know.
the time anymore, so.
And some of it I don't want to. That's why it's gone.
Right. I just wanted, because I had people asking me, well, the new moon, where is it this month? Because they know that I watch it. And Mercury came out of retrograde last week. Did you notice that?
No.
Oh, well, some people did in a big way.
As far as
it went what we call direct, sudden things, sudden changes, things that had been hanging back there that hadn't happened. People were waiting for them to happen, and then when Mercury went direct, then all of a sudden, and the people that were calling that were saying, make it stop, because they couldn't get things to shift.
Yeah.
All of a sudden it all shifted. Now they're calling and saying, can you slow this down? I don't do that kind of work, so there we go. All right.
I don't either.
Yeah. And for those of you that just tuned in, this is Soul Chat, and I'm Lainey Risto, and this is Carol Carson, and we're going to have a special guest on in just about 30 seconds here. If you're interested in calling in, this is about being an empath, and she wrote a book. Where did I put it? It's right here somewhere. It's about Not Crazy, Confessions of a Closet Empath, the sensitive soul's journey into another way. When did you realize you were picking up things that most people didn't pick up?
It started when I was 12. Then when I was 16, it got more intense, but I ignored it. I tried to.
And why did you ignore it?
Because I was crazy.
Well, at least people thought you were crazy.
That's how it was perceived. Back then, that's how you were perceived. You're crazy. Even now I have people saying to me, I had contacted my cousin back home. Her son passed away quite a few years ago before I came out here. And I wanted to tell her what he was trying to tell her, but I didn't know how to approach it, because it was like, I had these messages being told to me, and I needed to get them to the people they wanted to get it to. But I hesitated because of people saying, there's something wrong with you. You know?
I did that for a long time, and then I figured out I might as well. People thought I was a little crazy anyway, so I might as well go for it. Right?
Yeah.
The way I do that is if I get messages like that, and I will say, I had a dream last night.
Oh, you put it out like that.
So if you put it around a dream, because typically everybody has dreams.
Yeah, and I've got a lot of people come to me in dreams.
Kind of present it like, if you want a cookie, here, I've got something.
Yeah.
And let them deal with it.
Yeah. Well, we talked, when my mom passed away quite a few years ago, my cousin came over to the house, and she was talking to me, and I had given her a poem about passing over. Her son was only I think in his 20s. He died in a car crash.
That's hard.
And what was really hard is she was on one part of the highway, and he had the accident, and he died, and she was down below, and they wouldn't let her up because she didn't know it was her son.
Oh, my.
That was really. She was there waiting in a car, knowing there was an accident, not knowing that it was her son, not even getting a chance. If she would have known, she would have been able to go up and console him, be with him, or something before he passed, because he didn't pass right away. And
hard.
That was always, and somehow I got this poem for somebody had given it to me, so I gave it to her. And we started connecting, and she kind of was more open to what I was saying and things, because she felt the presence of her son.
Sometimes that happens for people that don't normally get things. You get a really intense situation, and then all of a sudden the doors kind of open up.
Yeah, I had just a little while ago, she had posted, well, Christmas time, she had posted because her son was born Christmas Eve, and she had posted something. So I had to contact her because he contacted me to give her a message. And so I said, I don't know if you're going to think I'm crazy or not. We talked about this before, but this is what is said to you, and I need to tell you.
And how did she react to that?
Oh, she was
Thrilled.
excited.
Yeah.
She said, are you a psychic? I said, no, I'm not a psychic. I said, I just connect.
I'm kind of like the post office.
Yeah, I'm like,
Spiritual post office.
that you can't reach, but will reach me. And then I had other people on the other side, like her mother and my aunt, which was her mother's sister, and they had sent me a message, and I had to give it to her. And she says, well, if you get any more, please let me know.
I find people, once they get in that situation, that they are more open because it's like there's no comfort anyplace else.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so
Yeah.
maybe I need to listen to somebody that's a little crazy because
Yeah.
they might have something. I
Yeah.
think the door's open.
Yeah.
Well, before we go any farther, I want to bring Diane on. And are you there, Diane?
I'm here.
Oh,
You hear
there
me?
she is. Okay. Are you away from the mic?
I am not. It's right in front of me. Hang on, let me see if I can turn it up a little bit.
Yeah, that might help. There's kind of an echo there. So you've been listening to Carol and I talking about this. Did any of that ring true for you?
Oh, yeah.
It feels good when somebody else says, oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's hilarious. So those kinds of things happen quite frequently.
Yeah, they do. They do.
A lot more now that I allow it.
Yes.
For years and years, it was not, it was like not okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So you didn't, and the more you tried to stuff it, the worse it would get at times.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have a daughter who is much more empathic and psychic than I am, and she started out in her training early on, and I was just absolutely crazy because it was like, what is she doing?
Yeah, my daughter.
Into all of this awful, witchy stuff, and
Right.
now I'm really, really grateful for what she knows because I call her up and say, okay, what is this?
Well, I think isn't it interesting, Diane, that you and I were in situations where, I don't know what your situation was like, but mine where I learned early on that it was better not to say what I was getting if I wanted to be accepted, even in the family.
Oh, yeah.
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 Isn't it interesting that your daughter's born into a family where it's more accepted and she has this gift? Because it is a gift.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
people tend to look at it like it can be a disease.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's not.
Mm-mm. No.
Yeah. Not only is it a gift, it's an ability that is expandable, that you can learn skills with, and you can learn to use it and use it better and well for yourself and for the other people around you.
Right.
And that's so important to recognize what a boon it is, not only to yourself, but to everyone around you. And the more you're accepted by those people around you, the more willing you are to really explore and see what's out there and what information you do get and how you can share it.
Right. The other thing is not only that, but accepting it in yourself. I think that's really where it starts. And I don't know if you caught the show last week, Diane, but we were talking about it starts with awareness and understanding that maybe this isn't mine. Maybe this belongs to somebody else, but I'm sensitive enough I'm picking it up.
Right. Definitely. And to know which parts of that you need to keep and pass on.
Right.
Which parts of that are simply for you to know or understand.
Right.
And definitely to recognize that even what you do share, you share with concern, and you don't tell people what they have to do because of what you have picked up.
Right.
Right.
I've had so many people that once they open this door and they're getting all of this information and they expect to go out and tell the world what the world is supposed to do, and it's this way, and that's not a good way to approach things.
Right. What I do, being a shamanic practitioner, and I adhere to a code of ethics where it's very permission based, and I get stuff all the time. So I'm always asking people if I get something, or it's amazing the people that will come up to me that somehow they figured out I might have something for them. Have you noticed that, Carol? They just kind of show up and say, I was going to ask you this question. What do you get about, and it's something. Do you get anything about someone that I knew that passed away, or they're really ill right now? And I really haven't told them what I do. Yeah. So it's almost like they're spirit led in the terminology that I use. And it's always interesting.
Yeah, definitely they're drawn to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I believe that's true, especially if you're on a healer's path. If you're on a healer's path, that it's brought to you to help people. And I want people to understand that what we're talking about is from a perspective of divine light. It's not from a perspective of any kind of black magic or anything like that. No, I want people, because I think that's the tendency, is people tend to think, well, this could be of the devil. And there's a whole bunch of it that's not.
Right. Yeah. This is just kind of like, I feel like I'm giving somebody something that they need. That has to be passed on to them. And I'm at the point where I don't want to hold back because of, the way I may be looked at. I want these people to get this message when it's given to me, and they do with it what they want, and
Right. Yeah, it's given not to tell them what to do. It's given. It would be like if you were handing a new book out at a bookstore,
right? Yeah,
and saying, "Here, check this out, and if it sticks, if you like it, take it home.
Right.
And if you don't, leave it on the counter.
Yeah.
It works that way. Yeah. Well, both Diane and I were raised in a little town in Washington called Battleground. Well, no, actually, you were in Hawkinson, right?
I'm in Brush Prairie.
Brush Prairie, I forgot. We even stepped down one there, not down, but.
It is.
I know. It's Hawkinson, Brush Prairie. They're all these little burgs that were in a rural community. So I learned early on, especially when I went to school, because I was kind of raised around energy healing. And when Diane comes to town, we get to go to lunch, and then I get to talk to her about all this stuff. She's still there. I left.
Yes. Well, I left and kept coming back. But,
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'll be back soon, probably in about 6-8 weeks, something like that. When did you personally know that you were picking up things in a different way than a lot of people around you, Diane?
In a lot of aspects, I really can't tell you that. I know it was very, very confusing for me for most of my life. I haven't really allowed, well, let me put it this way. I have allowed this kind of information to come in as a spiritual nature, as an answer to prayer, and looking at it that way through a more religious standpoint earlier in my life. But I didn't really let myself open until I was quite old. I was in my 50s, and it was probably 56, 57 when I took a type of meditation class that really opened things up for me in new ways.
So that's where the title of the book comes from, Not Crazy, Confessions of an Empath. That's where it comes from, is that moment?
I think so.
Okay.
Just being able to recognize that I wasn't crazy, that opening my imagination and all of this stuff that I got was valid. It was often very important, and to begin to recognize the way the information came in, that a lot of times it was in metaphors, archetypes, different things like that, and to begin to correlate it, to recognize what it actually was huge for me. And the other thing about it was that it was, that class opened things for me to recognize that that was the way I think, that was the way I lived, and that other people didn't. That was the big one for me, is that other people really honestly were not getting this kind of information.
So you thought everybody was, and they weren't just talking about it? They just weren't talking about it? Oh.
Right. Yeah.
Oh.
Being like being in school, for me, when I was young, to look at people do mean things to each other or say mean things to each other, I would look at them and I would confuse the crap out of me because I couldn't understand how they would do that because it hurt so stinking bad. Even when it wasn't directed at me, it physically was painful.
And why do you think they don't? Why do you think they don't feel it, Diane? Why do you think they're not aware of what it causes? Why do you think that is?
Well, in some of my research, one of the people commented that there are about 20% of the people that are actually empaths. Everybody has the capacity for empathy, but they don't have it on to the level that an empath does.
Now,
so they have to figure some of this out in other ways.
And what are the other ways they figure it out?
Well, facial cues, by people turning around and being mean back to them in a way that they will feel it. Being able to hit their own triggers, the things that upset them or whatever. That's the way they learn it. But for people like us, just actually being with somebody who is thinking mean thoughts can actually be painful for me. I just figured everybody was like that. They're not.
Yeah. I'm curious about the study, the research that they've done, because all research is usually done with a sample of some kind, a significant sample. Right. So they'll find that within that sample, there is like 20%. But it makes me wonder how you could actually research this. I'd be interested to know how they determined that.
There is quite a lot of research going on, and I can't cite things right at the moment. But
that's all right.
I
that's all right.
have to go in and look it up. But
because
Carla McLaren has a lot of things in her book, The Art of Empathy.
The art of empathy. Yeah.
Yes, The Art of Empathy. She has a lot of resources and stuff in the back on the actual research that's going on. Not only on empathy, but neuro and brain science and quite a few other things.
Of that 20%, was there a significant number between men and women?
I don't know.
Okay. My experience is that women tend to be more empathic, but I think it's because from early times, prehistoric times, women had to network. So there's a natural channel there. There's a natural way of communicating that I'm always laughing at. It's one of the comedians. Oh, it's Bill Engvall that we see in town every once in a while, and he talks about, he goes home to his wife and he says, "Oh, I saw my friend Fred. We played golf today. He and Judy are getting a divorce." And his wife goes, "Really? What happened? Why? What's going on?" And he goes, "I don't know." and she says, "Well, why didn't you ask?" And he goes, "What did you say to him?" And I asked him if he's okay, and he said, "Yeah." And then they played golf. I mean, I find that typically men have a direct way of communicating, and it's like they don't look for the nuances, but women tend to look for the nuances. We want to know the details. We want to know how things happen.
And that also depends on, men look for the details, but they look for other details.
Okay, talk about that.
If he had come home and said that his friend bought a new boat, he could tell you everything about that new boat.
Well, yeah, it's more factual.
Well, it's his line of interest.
Okay.
And where hers would be, how are they doing? How are they feeling? What's going on with them?
It's an emotion-based thing.
It's an emotion-based thing where the men in our society, and I don't know if this is just generational or not, but in our society have been taught to run away from anything that has the word feeling in it.
Okay. So I'm going to ask the male in the studio. George, you're sitting here. What do you think about what she said?
I want to hear
I
this.
don't think that's quite accurate at times. I
Okay,
don't believe that
okay.
men actually just run away from anything that has feeling in it.
Okay, what do
Hmm?
you think?
Well, my opinion is I just think that it's just something that people have been taught inherently that this is just the way it is. I think that everybody looks at it about the same, and you generally on each side, women and male. You know, it just depends on how you're raised and what you look at and how you look at things.
Okay. So you were raised with an intuitive mother.
Yeah.
So you naturally fell into that. But there's a lot of guys that are raised in a situation where nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Was your dad around a lot?
No.
No. Okay. So there's a
No, but
little
the VFW
influence.
knows him very well.
Oh, okay. Thanks, George.
Thanks for sharing.
So what do you think about that, Carol?
I agree that because there was different. I had different perspectives of what males were. My dad was more so in the line of what George was talking about, but then there also was a side with his George's dad and George's grandfather, which was totally what Diane's talking about.
Okay. Okay.
And there was
I think
more
we're all
so,
capable
yeah.
of it. Yeah.
There was more so male on the side of what George's father and grandfather were, more so than what, and being brought up in a family like I was, you know, and George was the only male. I expected him to carry on what I was.
Yeah, so now we're talking
familiar
about
with.
roles and expectations
Yeah.
on what they do. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Now, I grew up in a very artistic family because my dad was a drummer, and I had an uncle that is a very well-known cartoonist for Warner Brothers, and so there was an artistic side, which I think tends to open that up more, which kind of leads us into what can you do to develop it, Diane? What do you think? Is she there?
Yeah.
Oh, there she
Yes,
is.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I went, oh my God, we lost her.
That was a sideways, not what I was thinking about. But anyway,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
What can we do? We can do quite a bit, actually. First of all, is to allow ourselves to recognize that there is more to learn. There are all kinds of classes out there. There are a lot of things on the internet these days that you can pick up that can be helpful, but be very careful with
Yeah.
what you pick up on the internet. Just check it out before you don't swallow anything whole, but you shouldn't do that anyway. And specifics are things like taking classes or taking something to learn about meditation. And when I say meditation, there are several different types of meditation out there, and they're kind of, from what I've been seeing, they're kind of starting to get lumped into each other. But for what I'm talking about specifically is the type of meditation where you go on a mind journey. You don't sit there and look for that stillness, that place where you're just contemplating one thing, but you're going on a journey in your mind. And
That really
Go
falls into what I do. And that's what
Yeah.
I'm telling people all the time is that meditation, as many people know, is to still the mind and to go to the core of who you are, the internal stillness, and listen to what you really are saying, what's really speaking to you. A shamanic journey is we use sound, and it's gone with an intention. We are consciously taking ourselves out of our body and going and looking for certain things.
Right, yeah. And you can combine those two in a lot of aspects so that you go into that place to see who you are, where you are.
Right.
But you can also bring in to you those things that will help you learn the lessons that you need. One of the journeys that I went on was I went into that place inside me, and the thing that was interesting to me was that when I mentally stepped into that, in front of me was a big brown grizzly bear about 8 feet tall on his hind legs looking at me.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah. Well, and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I'm in my mind, I'm just fine, there's nothing wrong.
Right. And it's nothing that you expected. You didn't go on that
Right.
meditation expecting to see.
No,
Yeah,
totally
right,
unexpected.
right.
And so I stand there and I said, hi. And this bear, thought or whatever, says, hi. and and then it came down onto all fours and puked all over the floor.
Lovely. Always what I love. And in a shamanic journey, I'm always telling people everything that happens, there's some meaning to it, which I would read that to say, let go. Just, let go. Let go of what you're carrying inside. I mean, that's what I would suggest. I never tell people, because honestly, I want to say something about the classes, and I really appreciate you saying you need to be careful. Understand that when you take a class, you are taking, unless it's something like math or science, or you're taking somebody's best opinion.
Yeah.
Because this is not anything that you can quantify.
Yeah.
This is, feelings are not facts, so you don't, you really can't quantify them. So I'm really glad that you brought that up, to be careful. But the thing is that you developed as an empath long before your awareness came that you were one. And how do you think that happened?
Well, the awareness came late. But I remember from being a little kid when I would, and the classic idea of what an empath is being able to feel what other people are feeling. And I remember very young being able to do that.
Right.
From the time I was very, very young.
But you must have had some kind of awareness. You must have had some kind of awareness that told you that wasn't yours, it was theirs. Because that's usually where people get tripped up, is that they feel something, they pick something up, and they think, oh my gosh, I feel bad, or I don't want to go in there, or I don't need to leave the house today because I'm just feeling bad. And what you're really doing is maybe you're picking up something else.
Right. And it was absolutely a delight to me when I finally figured that out, and how to shed what was not mine. Well, how to delineate what was and what wasn't.
And how
then anything that I had picked up, be able to actually shed that, so that I didn't have to carry it anymore, or to not pick it up. Later on my journey, I was able to learn how to not pick up some things. Other times, you pick it up and you don't even recognize you've done it. But then being able to shed it is really, really helpful. And both of those things are covered in my book.
Yeah.
Not Crazy, Confessions of a Closet Empath. And the other thing about that I wanted to also point out that we're talking about is that throughout the book, I hope to point out, to take what's in the book. What's in the book is what I have found out, and to use it for you and the way that you need it.
Right.
If something isn't the way that you would do it exactly, change it.
Yeah.
And figure out what works for you. And that's been a really important thing for me, because a lot of the stuff that I come across with and the way other people do things aren't quite right for me. Or a lot of times I think people make things too hard. This isn't real hard. If you just allow yourself to figure out the easiest way for you, it's important to recognize that.
And I think the reason that it gets hard is because there's this self-judgment that steps in that says, well, I'm getting this, but nobody else is, so I must be crazy. Or that can't be the right. If you can I don't see in an empath, I don't see where right and wrong comes in, because it's not that you're going to take an action to speak of. If anything, the problem is I feel it. Let's say you're having an angry day, Carol, and I sit down next to you and go, whoa, I just really feel that, and I don't feel good. I'm going to go home. Now I've taken an action, but I've taken an action for me.
Right.
I'm not going to turn around and say, would you stop being angry, and you need to stop something. Either way, there's a judgment going on there.
Right.
Yeah. I think
also,
yeah, go ahead.
Something that you need to recognize is that an empath, or being empathic, there is a lot much, much more to it than we really normally think of. It's not just being able to feel what other people feel.
Right.
There are lots of other parts to it where you are getting information from other people that isn't your information.
Right.
And so you need to know how to deal with that. One of them that I just love is called analytical awareness, where you are actually writing on the thoughts of other people and you get it. You understand what they're talking about. You understand what they're doing and how things are together. And so I love really smart people. But when I leave them, I don't have the foundation to support what I understood because it was their stuff.
I think I understand what you're talking about, because I've had conversations with people and I walk away and I can't remember what they said, but I remember the energy of it.
Yeah, me too.
Yes,
Or people will say, remember when we had that conversation? And I'm going, okay, you're going to have to tell me what it was about, because I remember the energy. I remember it was up, or I remember it was, there was one point I was kind of confused because I didn't understand, but I don't even remember what it was said.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I think that's a good example.
Yeah. And empaths feel through life.
Right.
Other people experience life different ways. They remember things different ways. But everything has a feeling to me. And again, this is something that I'm just figuring out, that I remember things by how they feel, not by how they look, not how they smell. It has been definitely not something that brings many memories for me. Where other people, those are really, really hot for them.
So I'm wondering if, in this research that you did, if you noticed that the primary way that empaths take in information is by sensing as opposed to a visual or an auditory.
They can, yes. I think the majority of them probably do, but there are ways of, because you're dealing with like a subtle sense.
Uh-huh.
The sensitive soul, and that's empathy goes along with being sensitive. So does a lot of the sixth senses, and a lot of those cross over.
Right.
For them. So I don't think there's a way to really delineate it out. You just figure out which ones you use, which ones you use the best, and which ones you use the most. And so I can't say for one person or another person, because they each have their own set of gifts.
Right. There's a whole way of determining how people take in information, and it's called neurolinguistic programming, sometimes referred to as NLP. And I can tell you, I've had a basic course, and I have other friends that have gone much farther in it, and I can tell you that they have this process called mapping. And when I was doing the mapping for me, it came out, there's seeing, there's visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and olfactory. Okay. That kinesthetic, my map went KKKAV, which meant everything. The way I take in information is from a feeling point of view. And it's true. I don't know about you, Diane, but when I was in school, they could stand up at the chalkboard and draw pictures all day long in math, and it was like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
The only way I could get it is if I could take immediately what they drew up there and work it out myself. And then I could get it. But besides, in ninth grade, I had a boyfriend. I didn't pay attention to algebra anyway, so there you go,
Right, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And who pays attention in math anyway?
Right.
Sorry.
Well, we've got several minutes left, but I want to get to the part of how do you protect yourself, because that is the thing that we talked a bit about last week. Carol, do you have a way of protecting yourself when you're in a situation that you don't want to be?
Maybe so. I'm trying to think of how I think we all go to a certain part of staying away from something that we know isn't what we want and feel comfortable with.
Right.
We all have that tendency to be able to separate ourselves from it.
I think that one of the ways that empaths do is, which it's what they instinctually want to do, is leave. So they don't go out. Some that are affected negatively by it, they will feel sick. They will not go out in the world. And I've done a fair amount of that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can isolate with the best of them. How about you, Diane?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Totally.
But I think there is a way of being out in the world and being an empath and being okay. And I think the first thing it starts with is, as Diana said, is starting with awareness of being able to recognize, ooh, that's not mine.
Yeah, and that's very important. Listening to you talk about that, yes, it's very important to, separate it.
Yeah.
Separation is a big thing to, to help you and keep you healthy with it, because if not, if you take it all on yourself, and I've felt that.
I've had I was speaking with a friend of mine this morning who's a shamanic life coach, and she was working with me on a couple of things, and we've been talking about this. So there's no accident. All of this has come together all at once. One of the things is she was saying she was out in the yard, she was doing fine, and then all of a sudden she just got depressed.
Yeah.
Depressed.
Yeah,
It's just like a wave
out of
just
nowhere.
getting over her.
Out of nowhere.
And I think the tendency is people think that it's someone or it's somebody else. But there's also this thing about collective energy. It's kind of like dogs pack.
Right.
So there are certain situations you can go into where the energy it's negative. It's just not that. I don't go down on the Strip. I really don't have a good time down there.
Okay, certain places will bring that back into you. Yeah,
and it's not that it's any one particular person.
No,
it's that the energy is
just
kind of piling itself up.
Yeah, now I understand that now.
Yeah. And so what happens is, for me, and we were talking about this morning, is one of the practices I use, and I'm starting to use more now, is that, that's not mine. Checking internally, is that really mine? Am I really depressed? No, I wasn't, and it suddenly came over me, so there's a good chance it's not mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask my guiding spirits and teachers, return to sender.
See, now I haven't looked at it in that way. I get the feeling, and I'm going, what's happening? Where's this coming from? What am I getting this for? And, what am I going to do with this? Because it shouldn't be here. Where did it come from? It's just like it drops out of the sky, and all of a sudden here you are, and you're going like, I was just having a cup of coffee, and I was feeling really great.
Really
now
good.
all of a sudden I'm like depressed to no extent.
So what would you do in that situation, Diane?
You're talking about several different things. The first one that you need to recognize is that people are always sending and receiving. And they are sending within 1,000 yards of where they are. So you can be picking up something from someone who's 1,000 yards away from you without having any idea. And if you have a bigger event, or if you are sensitive to specific energies, it can be from clear across the globe.
Okay.
I think you're deciding. I loved what was it Carly said about delineating out. Is it mine? Where is it coming from? That kind of stuff, if you know how to do that, is perfect. To actually shield, you can shield yourself. I have a couple of shielding techniques in the book that are really helpful, but shielding is temporary and it takes a lot of energy to keep up.
It is. It's hard. Protection. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to do that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. If you pick something up, releasing, you can do that. The other part is that you need to really recognize is that the only way for an empath to have decent boundaries and shields is to understand your basic core values and have a good foundation in them and be grounded. Then you're able to recognize what's not yours and let it go and stuff like that. It took me a long time to begin to really recognize who I was, because I had lived as other people for so long, carrying other people's stuff, feeling other people's emotions, that when someone asked me what I wanted to eat, I couldn't tell them, because I would look for what was quick, what was simple, what was convenient for everybody around me. I had never bothered to find out what I liked. And so it's been quite a journey to really find out what those values of my own are so that I can keep myself in that place of being much more safe and to be able to recognize what is not mine when it comes in.
Yeah. Well, we only have like about 3 minutes left. Diane, I wanna really thank you for coming on. And the name of the book again is Not Crazy: The Confessions of a Closet Empath. I love that title. I think it's great because I think so many of us we don't say anything because we want to be accepted. And the real truth is we have to know that this is part of who we are, and it's about accepting ourselves. This is who I am.
That's the first step.
Yeah, I'm with you, Carol. It's like I'm at a place where, okay, I don't care anymore. This is what's going to happen, and this is what I'm going to say, and here's what it goes. But it takes a long time to get there.
It does. It does. And once you get there, though, the feeling is so good.
I know. It's like, why didn't I do this years ago?
Yeah. I alleviated all this trouble.
Do you have anything else you'd like to say, Diane, before we go?
I do.
Okay.
The book will actually be out in 1 week. If anybody... it has a companion journal that goes with it.
Oh, great.
Called the Discovery Journal for Not Crazy, so that you can note those things that you are learning, learn more, help it be better for you.
Oh, perfect.
If anybody wants to pre-buy the book, if they will shoot me an email, I will send them the book, and I will give them a PDF of the journal.
Okay, I'm going to say the address so they can hear it clearly because we got a little echo on your your line. It's at icare, ICARE .berry, BERRY at gmail.com, right?
Yes.
Okay, so one more time, icare.berry at gmail.com. Diane, thank you so much for coming on. It's good to hear your voice again.
Thank you for inviting me.
Oh,
I
sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah, I can't wait to have something, have lunch with you again when you get down here. And if you want to, next week we'll be back. Next week's going to be Deborah Aiken, and she's written a book as well. We got books coming out our ears here.
Good.
That's
great.
it's about creating reality by doing daily journaling spiritually. It's really interesting. I'm Elena Risto, Lainey Risto. Some of you know me that way. I will be back next week. Carol, thanks for coming on.
Thank you
It's
so
good.
much.
Yeah, it was fun. And think about it. Think about when you feel something, and ask yourself, is that really my stuff or is that somebody else's? Okay. Have a great week. See you next time. Bye.